The objective today is to describe what a person can do with VMware products. So we'll do this by first just explaining what VMware is. I'll give you a few examples of the operating systems you can put on it. Then we'll talk about this concept of bridging, talk about some uses for VMware. Then we'll take a field trip and I'll show you how to set one up, and I'll show you one in use. And then we'll just end the lesson by reflecting on the amazingness of virtual machines. So VMware Workstation is what's called a hypervisor, and this runs on 64-bit versions of Windows and Linux operating systems. And now it enables users to set up virtual machines on a single physical machine and then use them simultaneously along with the actual machine. I'll show you an example of that in a little bit, but it's one of the very nice features that just seem to automatically work with VMware. I've used Hyper-V and I had a lot of problems with that, and it's definitely a Microsoft thing. Before then I used VirtualBox for years and had zero problems with it. But once I started studying VMware to get ready for the Cyber Patriot competition, I really fell in love with it. Now each virtual machine can execute its own operating system, which includes versions of Windows, Linux, BSD, even MS-DOS. And who creates VMware Workstation? Well, VMware Inc., which is a division of Dell Technologies. So yeah, Dell, the computer makers. Now there is a free of charge version, VMware Workstation Players, and when I open mine up, you're going to see in parentheses it says for non-commercial use, and I'm definitely not using it for commercial use. I'm using it for education. And the nice thing about VMware Workstation is it supports bridging, existing host network adapters, and sharing physical disk drives and USB devices with a virtual machine. Now I'm going to put this to the test here in front of you guys. Hopefully I can get it to work, but the thing about the bridging network adapters, that worked automatically. I've already opened it and I know it does work. What does that mean? It means your VM can access the internet through imagining or through it thinking it has a wired connection, while my machine is actually connected to the internet wirelessly. And the other thing VMware can do is simulate disk drives, so an ISO image file can be mounted as a virtual optical disk drive, and a virtual hard disk drive will be seen as a .vmdk file. So in summary, when you think of this term bridging, just imagine this virtual machine, which is like a pretend computer inside your computer. The virtual machine has a bridge to your real machine. And because of that nice relationship, you're able to do quite a bit of things. Now, VMware Workstation Pro can save the state of a virtual machine, that is, take a snapshot. And this is what students who are in that Cyber Patriot competition are doing. They're getting VMs that are saved in a current state and insecure state, and then they're opening these up and looking for the problem. And apparently there's an automatic scoring tool, so once you find the problem and fix it, you get points for that. Now, for just regular everyday use, not competition kind of use, the cool thing about that is if you build up your VM and then you're doing something that really damages it, you could revert back to that saved state. And you should know that's a big part of having a virtual machine in the first place, so you can accidentally download a virus, you can accidentally destroy it somehow, and it's just no problem at all. You just delete it. Or in this case, if you have VMware Workstation Pro, you just upload that last snapshot when the state of the machine was not broken. So I took a snapshot of my own, screenshot here of information from the VMware Wikipedia article, and I'm just asking, after you look down through this, what information looks interesting to you. For example, I really zeroed in right here. It is interesting to find that this program is written in C, C++, and F#. And just because asking questions is good, I came up with this one. Can we run virtual environments to test out stuff on iOS or Android? Could we create virtual environments based off cell phone operating systems? I'm over here looking at the platform. It says x86 64 only, as in if you just have regular x86 as in a 32-bit machine, it won't work. And cell phones like iOS, Android are using operating systems that cooperate with ARM architecture, which is not x86. And I do see in parentheses here, if you have an older version of VMware, I guess you can work on 32-bit chips. You just have to go to their website and select that older version. So since we're on the topic of versions, let's go ahead and take a field trip to the Wikipedia site. I like the table that they created to show you all the different versions that exist, the ones not supported anymore. And then it looks like a sneak peek into the future here. So starting in 1999, that was the first release. things will change, but then specifically like in September 2008, these features were added to it. PAE stands for Physical Address Extensions. So that's nice of them to support CPUs that don't have that. That must mean they're pretty much older CPUs. And you could just poke around here and see each time there's a new feature. We're right here in 2013. If we just keep going, there's quite a few versions. This is a really cool green one in the middle of a bunch of red ones. Version 12.5.9 allows the VMware Workstation Pro, exposes hardware support for branch target injection mitigation to VMware guests. This hardware is used by some guest operating systems to mitigate the CVE common vulnerability, also known as Spectre. You may have heard that in the news, Spectre and Meltdown. But then version 14 came out and that's no longer supported, but by version 14.1.3, this version comes with an updated OpenSSL library. And then version 15 will hit with quite a few. Kind of notice the pattern there. When you get a version that's a new number, it usually comes with like a pretty large chunk of new, or maybe very important, I would say, updates at once. But sometimes it's kind of hard to understand how versioning works. Well, I don't see any blue, so that's kind of a bummer. We don't get to see anything that's upcoming. And then let's go over to the official VMware site. If you click on products here, let's go down to desktop and app virtualization. No, we want personal desktop. And then go over to workstation player. Well, actually, let's go over here to downloads. We want the freeness, so free product trials and demos. Go over to Workstation Pro. And then you'll have your two choices if you're on Windows or Linux. So that was a little weird. I could not find how to get to this, but I liked this screen. What I did is I just went to Google and searched for VMware download, clicked the first link I saw. But I like this screen to show you guys of all the different products out there. Here's data center and cloud infrastructure, infrastructure and operations management. This is VMware's vRealize. Over here is VMware vSphere, vCloud. You can just put a V in front of anything and then it's a VMware product, it looks like. SD-WAN is something we've been talking about in my networking class recently. There's even a VMware Internet of Things download. But if we go all the way down here, you'll see this VMware Workstation Player. This is what we need for Cyber Patriot. So you could click it, and if you're on Windows, you'll click this blue one. If you're not, like I did at home, I went to this Linux one. But it's as simple as that. Just realize that there's lots of different versions and lots of options for the type of virtual machine you get, or the VMware product, I should say. Let's just check how good you guys are at reading the command line interface. Over here we clearly have a Windows machine, so after downloading VMware you could see that there's two volumes here and those file systems are identified over here. I was wondering why it said HPFS/NTFS. So I did a little research and found that basically Windows 95 and its successors, 98 and me, they can read and write HPFS only when mapped via a network share. They cannot read it from a local disk. So when you're looking at a command line like that and you're seeing this /, that's because they are listed as both, because NTFS and HPFS share the same file system identification number. So I thought that was interesting, and then I bring this up because I encourage my students to experiment with the different file systems after they learn about the whole concept that an operating system can be separate from the file system in the sense that you can have one operating system, let's say Windows 7, and then you can choose different types of file systems to use on that operating system. Maybe we're talking about them using NTFS, or they're using one of these FAT file systems. Either way, it's just kind of mind-blowing to realize those two concepts are two separate things. Okay, now here's some cool features that VMware especially supports. It says that they have these shared folders between the virtual environment and the guest environment. You can drag and drop. I did that myself. I was like awed the first time I did it. I'll show you that in a second, but let me end by saying that this functionality is all because of the host guest file system. And if you don't like this, you can totally disable it, or it may be already disabled by default for security. So if we're in Cyber Patriot competitions, that's something for you to check out. And how would you make these changes? Well, go to the .vmx configuration file in order to do so. There's also clipboard sharing between host and guest. I haven't figured that one out. And the third one is, sure, time synchronization capabilities. Okay, so let's go over there and start playing around. You'll see back here I already have a folder opened with a Windows 10 ISO ready to go. So if I go down here to VMware Workstation 15 player, there it is. So that's like the opening screen, nothing too fancy. And if I wanted to use that Windows 10 ISO, I would go here to create a new virtual machine. I need to browse, and then I'll click that Windows 10. There's 100 videos out there on YouTube on how to set it up, so I'm not going to show you that part. What I will show you is a VM I already got ready, and it's a Linux one. I love Linux. Oh, and maybe I should not full screen it quite yet, because I wanted to show you that ability to drag and drop. Okay, so here's my sign in. I used a really small password because this is just a throwaway machine. Alright, and so here is my desktop. I'm going to open up the folder, the file cabinet there. And let me jump into downloads, and I'm just going to show you that I can take that ISO and drag it over here, and you just see the copying file Windows 10 ISO. So in this sense, I wonder if I could create a virtual machine within a virtual machine. I also think that might not be a smart thing to do because I'm imagining it'd run really slow. Plus, what would be the point of doing that? I'm just talking to myself here as this loads. Okay, so now there it is. If I go over to documents, I have a video I recorded, and I'm trying to get that MP4 over here to my host machine, and all I have to do is drag and drop, and now it'll copy, and now it's there. That is pretty cool. Alright, the last thing I'll show you in here to do is go and go to your terminal, and I'm going to type in print environment variables. And that's it, really. The cool thing about this is I'm on a Windows computer. The reason I dragged a video over here and then had to edit that video earlier because I didn't have Kden Live. This is the video editor I love the most, but it's only on Linux, so that's kind of cool that while I'm here at school, not at home where my Linux machine is, I can just throw up this Linux machine right here and start doing the things I need to. If I go up here, I could turn the machine off, power off, and then here's that VMware Workstation player you see. I'll go ahead and click OK, and it's all gone. So to close out this lesson, there are many ready-made virtual machines which run on VMware Player, and you could be doing this for all kinds of different purposes, including safety here. So if I was to browse the internet through the Firefox you saw on that Linux virtual machine, then that'd be cool. And then if anything got infected or damaged, I just discard it. And I want to make sure you guys are really understanding that is one of the nicest things about virtual machines. Just take that thing and throw it in the trash along with Oscar the Grouch right here. And you could even configure VMware to automatically reset itself after each use so that no personal information is saved. So that's the end of the lesson. I'm curious, what can you do with VMware Workstation Player?